Let's get started with our opening prayers then. Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening, everybody. A very warm welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and we should get started with our opening prayers. Okay. All right. Radhe Radhe, we'll get started with our opening prayers. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Right, Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. So let's get started. Today I have picked up a shloka which is going to enable us to talk about rituals, the rituals-based stuff, and I would be taking an opportunity to talk about the difference between Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. And I'm sure all of you will be able to relate to it. But the way we will relate to it is will help you reflect on what are the limitations that we were not aware of. Okay? And hopefully it will help us look at it in perspective and help us progress spiritually. Bhakti or the dimension that we bring to our spiritual practice. So that's the whole idea. Let me get started, and with the shloka that I picked up, we'll pick up a few hands. Today we have a hard stop at 10 because we have another session after this, so we will try to pace it accordingly. Shruti Vipratipannate Yada Sthyasyati Nischala Samadhavachala Buddhi Tada Yogam Avapsyasi. All right. Who do we have the pleasure of inviting first today?
Radhe Radhe, Sam ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Shruti Vipratipannate Yada Sthasyati Nischala Samadhavachala Buddhi Stada Yogam Avapsyasi.
Very nice, Samji. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Ashutosh ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Shruti vipartipannate yada sthasyati nishala samadhavachala buddhi tada yogam vapsyasi.
Very nice, Ashutoshi.
Radhe Radhe, Sandhya ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Shruti Vipratipannate Yada Sthasyati Nischala Samadhavachala Buddhi Tada Yogam Avapsyasi.
Very nice, Sandhya. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Uday ji.
Radhe Radhe. Happy Deepavali to everyone.
Happy Shubh Deepavali.
Shruti Vipratipannate Yada Stasyati Nischala Samadhav Achala Buddhis tada yogam avapsyasi. Radhe Radhe.
Samadhav achala buddhi tada yogam avapsyasi. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Radhe Radhe.
Samadho achala buddhis. Okay.
We have four
Actually,
more hands.
buddhi and tada, when they do the sandhi, the sir comes, small sir comes. So that is how Sanskrit sandhi usually works. All right, let's pick up the next one.
Radhe Radhe, Sumesh ji.
Radhe Radhe, Nitin ji, Radhe Radhe, everyone.
Radhe Radhe.
Shruti Pratipannate Yada Sthashyati Nischala Samadhavachala Buddhi Tada Yogam Vapsyasi. Radhe Radhe. Thank you.
Nice, thank you, Sumeshi.
Radhe Radhe, Reem ji.
राधे राधे श्रुति विप्रतिपन्ना ते यदास्त्यस्त्यति निश्चला समाधाव अचला बुद्धि तदा योगम अवाप्स्यसि.
Wonderful, Riyaji.
राधे राधे.
Radhe Radhe. Okay, we can get to the last four hands.
Radhe Radhe, Sam ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Shruti vipratipanna te yada stayasti nischala samadha achla buddhis tada yogam avasyapasi.
Very nice, thank you, Samji. Okay, let's pick up the remaining hands. Three more.
Radhe Radhe, Payal ji.
Radhe Radhe, Payal ji.
राधे राधे श्रुति विप्रतिपन्ना ते यदा स्थास्यति निश्चला समाधावचला बुद्धिर्तदा योगम् अवाप्स्यसि. राधे राधे.
Very nice, thank you, Radhe Radhe. Last but not the least, Lakshmi ji.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe everyone. Shruti vipratipanna te yada sasyati nischala samadhavachala buddhis tada yogam avapsyasi. Radhe Radhe.
Wonderful, thank you. So let's get started with this shloka. In this shloka, Lord Krishna is telling Arjun that when your intellect ceases to be allured by the fruitive sections of the Vedas and remains steadfast in divine consciousness, you will then attain the state of perfect yoga. Okay, so if we read it carefully, he's saying our intellect natural tendency, because of our different lifetimes practices, is to keep on getting attracted towards the fruitive sections of the Vedas. You do this, this will happen. You do this, this will happen. Do the Mantra Siddhi, do Ashwamegh Yagya, do the Putra Kameshthi Yagya, do this, do that, you do this, you get this. Okay? So he's saying when you firmly, your intellect believes, okay, this is not the goal of human life. Just continue to do business with God. But however, Vedas still give you that. Right? There's a reason for that. We'll discuss that. And then he says, when you remain steadfast in divine consciousness, and what is that divine consciousness? Again, we'll talk about. Then you will attain the state of perfect yoga. So let's get started. How do we transition? So from donkhood to monkhood. Okay. What is donkhood basically? Donkhood is like we are doing something. Right? It is mindless repetition without truly knowing the value of it. Or knowing, it's like you're running. Why you're running, I don't know, but I have to run. Where are you running? I don't know, but I have to run. Why you have to run? Because everybody else is running. Right? So whether a donkey is carrying a sandalwood, or it is carrying plain log, or it is carrying bricks, doesn't matter. For it, it's all the same. Right? And monkhood requires mindfulness around and awareness of intellect around what you want to do. Right? And donkhood is also like you're doing something, but you're doing it because you have to do it. And why you have to do it? Because you have to do it. That's why you have to do it. Kind of a deal, right? So that is what we are going to talk about today. We are going to reflect upon some of the stuff around that as well. Let's move on. Now, I want you to reflect on this one. Okay, next time. I find it very interesting, this analogy, and I'm sure you'll find it interesting as well. Now, here's a car. Car is running. Now, if you have a preference that it should be running from left to right, that I can't do anything about it. Okay, but the other picks I got in that direction, so I had to make it this direction only. Now, let's look at this car. Okay, now there's a dog which is chasing this car. And how excited this dog is. And then there's another dog. And then there's another one. It seems the most excited one. So much excited that it is kind of caught up with the car as well. And if you ask them, what's the plan here? Have you seen this? It's a pretty common sight in India, right? When a nighttime car or bike is going, when I was in college, we had a bike. So when we would cross a particular area or a region, we will put our legs up. Why? Because dogs will start chasing. They do the same with the car as well. Now, what's the plan here? Has anybody wondered what's the plan here? I mean, why do they chase it? Anybody wants to take a shot at it? It's a very interesting phenomenon. I'd really like to hear, what do you think is the plan here? Yeah, let's take some hands.
Radhe Radhe Sandhya ji.
Sandhya.
I don't know. I think they're just following each other. Trying to rat race sort of phenomena, like, you don't know where you're going, but just.
Yeah, let's hear from Pallavi. Good. I think that's a great point. Pallavi, what do you think? You have an alternate answer, or do you know what's going on here? What excites you basically to run after this car?
Yeah. So I think that's what I was going to say, the same thing, that they have no plans. They have no idea what they are doing. They just, one dog is chasing and all others are following. They have no plan.
True. Yeah, very, very true. I'll add some more color to it, okay? What they are doing here. Yes, Samji? Lakshmi ji?
On the lighter side, they think, what the hell you're doing in my territory? Get out of it. You car, we're going to push you out. But on the other side, the lighter side. But they are just following the maid child. One is started shouting it, the others also accompanying that one. At the thing.
That's true. Yes, Lakshmi ji?
Radhe, I don't know whether it's true or false. It is said from one of my relatives, the burning of the tire which irritates them. So that's why they bark and run behind it. So I don't know whether it's right or wrong.
Okay, all right. No, so the point here is this car is going, right? And they run after the car with such an
nothing to do. Meaninglessly they are running, and one after the other are following.
Yeah. Let's hear. Rahul has some interesting point. I have a feeling. So go ahead, Rahul.
No, I have a point from Udayji. Udayji has said a new corner to the territory and threat to the group. To safeguard, they are chasing that car.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it could become an interesting discussion topic, maybe on our portal as well. Why do dogs chase a car? Yes, sir. Ramji, you wanted to add something?
Radhe. I think one dog tries to catch the car, although catching the car is not going to be easy because the car will keep eluding them. It's much faster. But seeing this one dog chase with the other dogs, I think just go wild and also begin to chase.
Maybe showing solidarity to its own brotherhood, right? Kind of. Yeah, true. Good point, Sairamji. Okay, last but not the least, let's hear from maybe one more and I'll continue. That's not the objective. I want to go deeper into the philosophy as well. Maybe we can pick up one more hand and hear out.
Radhe Radhe Triple SG.
Radhe. So usually the cab drivers, due to mischievous nature, they put the car on the street dogs. So the dogs also try to take revenge and they start chasing similar looking cars.
That's a good point. Lateral revenge. Okay, bitterness.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about it. Let's continue. Rupaji, real quick, if you had some alternate point, lateral view on this.
Radhe everyone. Because the image what you have shown, And literally my street has got especially my apartment has got 6 dogs around. So I keep seeing that. They bark when a new person enters this colony or else a new vehicle comes. So when one barks, the others come and give like a unity. Everything, like even an animal comes or a person comes or any new vehicle comes, they keep shouting, barking at the new comers, and they just make them go away from that point where these dogs stay, and they don't even go beyond the limit actually.
Got it.
They
Okay,
don't
let's
even
move.
enter the nearest second street.
Understood. They are territorial, and it happens. I get that part. Let's move on. So basically, the way the intensity with which they chase this car, it's almost like they are going to create a dent in the universe. Okay. Now, what happens when the car stops? They also freeze. They also look back at the car driver. And then car will start running. They'll start running again. So basically, they don't have a plan. Okay, these dogs, they have absolutely no plan. They start chasing and keep chasing and keep chasing, and once they get tired, maybe that's when they will stop. And when the car driver will stop, they will also stop. It's like, okay, why did you stop? You interrupted our plan. And if the driver asks them, what was your plan? They will say, we have no clue. Okay, so we were supposed to run. So what would you tell the plight of these dogs, basically? What's going on here? If you could converse with that dog and tell him, what would be your recommendation to that dog? Okay, what's going on here? Anybody? If you could converse with that dog, how would you drive sense to that dog that, what you are doing? Have you even thought about what you're trying to do here? They start mindlessly chasing a car. Now, car is moving, they're also moving. Car stops, they also stop. Right? Car starts again, they again start running behind. That continues, this process. They have absolutely no plan. So if you could drive sense into them, what would you tell them?
Radhe Sandhya ji, you had raised your hand.
Yeah, I was just saying, thamja and find some purpose in life. I mean, just have a goal. Go towards the goal. Without that, doesn't make it.
What are you chasing? Why are you chasing? Have you thought about it? Kind of a deal, right? And where will it take you? Right? Let's say car stops. Then what? Are you going to jump on top of driver, sit in his lap, or are you going to eat up the car itself? There has to be some purpose behind an activity, right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, it looks very stupid here. The good point here, at least, is they're showing solidarity with their brotherhood. It is said that in India, when one dog barks in Kanpur, or for that matter, any pur, like village, we have purs in India, right? All the dogs, they start barking because they trust, if my brother is barking, he must have seen some thief. So I got to support him on that. However, in humans, we don't trust each other. Even if a saint comes and tells us, hey, God is there, this is how he looks like, and this is how you meet God and see God, we don't trust him. So dogs actually show us that there's a way of showing solidarity, including running after a car that they show. So the point here is, it seems like, these dogs have mindless. It's a mindless repetition, and there's basically, it goes back to the same thing, right? Doghood is what they are following. Mindless repetition of an activity without any sense or purpose, which is not going to take them far anyways. Ajit ji, you had a question, real quick.
No, I have a comment that they are not doing purposeless. There is a purpose. We get. We should learn that if any attempt is there from Maya, we should drive them out. See, they are dutiful. They are doing their exercise. They are showing their promptness that we are aware you cannot come in my area. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Yeah, that's a good way of thinking. They are dutiful, and they are dutifully doing their duty. Correct. All right. So let's move on. Basically, if you look at it, this might sound a little absurd, okay? But if I tell you the story of our lives, we are doing exactly the same for most part. Most of us. We pick up something, agenda, and then if somebody says, okay, by the way, where it's going to lead you, we cannot answer that question very clearly because we have never thought about it. We are so busy in running that we don't even know where we are running or what is the purpose of running and what will happen, when, let's say, for whatever we are running, if it happens, what next? Where will it take us? Is there a purpose to life, or have I served the purpose of my life? Is it going to give me happiness, or is it going to take me further away from the goal of life? Assuming you believe there is a goal of life. Okay? This is the story of our life. Not a big thing. Now let's get into the topic, real. Vedic mantras, ritualistic activities, sacrifices, cultivation of knowledge, performance of duties, all this stuff, they are all good things, right? If you think Vedic mantras, wow, people when they recite Vishnu Sahasranama, almost a sense of pride is coming out of them, right? When they recite that. Ritualistic activities, we do that, it's our tradition, right? Sacrifices when they do. Cultivation of knowledge, Shastra Vasana, if Jnani has a pride. Performance of duties, of course, that is part of it. These are, let's look at it in perspective. Yes, Monica ji, you had a question?
I almost had a question, Nitinji, and then I think it just got answered in my head, so I just lowered my hand and you asked me.
You are getting siddhis already, and it's going to happen more repeatedly. Okay, the universe will start giving you answers. So yes, hold on to that. We'll come back to that. So let's look at these activities: Vedic mantras, ritualistic activities, sacrifices, cultivation of knowledge, performance of duties. Right? These are some of the stuff that we do. If you look at it, all these activities, they are actually done. These are allurements of fruitative results in our scriptures. That is why we do that. Anybody does Vedic mantras without any basically fruitative attraction towards it? I don't think so. All these are for some kind of a material allurement. That is why we do. We do kamanas, we do this thing, that thing. We keep some kind of a wish list in our mind. Mannats, right? If we do this, good will happen. God will do kripa, so we will get this. So it is keeping some kind of a fruitative result in our mind. Okay. So basically, it is a means to an end. The Vedas are telling us it's a means to an end of attaching your mind to God, and finally it should lead to love for God. The problem happens, we get stuck at the ritualistic level only, and it becomes an empty ritual at that point. Something is better than nothing, because at least it is helping us to discipline our mind and giving us a reason to think about God. But we stop at that point only. We think that the mean itself is the end. Okay? We don't think beyond. Why am I reciting this mantra? Right? There's a beautiful story in Krishna Leela where Ram and Balram, they were hungry, and they went to a nearby village where people were doing Vishnu Sahasranama. I think they were doing a worship of Vishnu there. And they said, we are hungry. They said, hey, can't you see we are doing this? And they continued doing the yajna and sacrifices, whatever they were doing. And then they went to their wives. They were very fondly, they basically fed them. So the point here is, the purpose of Vedas is to satiate God. If you're not taking your mind to God and simply doing the rituals, it's called an empty ritual. It is simply a mechanical exercise. It's good to begin with, but not the purpose or the end game of why you are doing it. Okay. Now the other question is, you do it for these. Let's say you forget, this was the progression is you go beyond material allurements and then start getting the deeper meaning about those. The deeper meaning is to attach your mind to God and eventually love God. Right? The purpose of religion or spirituality is to love God. That is where it ends. Nothing else. Okay. Now let's say, and what happens? We start worshipping the rituals itself and limit ourselves to that only. We think our puja part is 2 times we do tan, tan, tan. All that stuff we do, and that becomes worshipping of that ritual, not worshipping of our God. And that is the biggest problem in majority of the places, right? Because the Mansi Bhakti or attaching your mind to that concept, either we don't get an exposure or we don't understand. And the whole point is missed. So you may keep on attaching zeros, multiple zeros in your ritualistic practices, but the one before that is remembrance and attaching your mind to God. If you have not attached that one, these are all empty zeros. Why? Because we have taken million infinite lifetimes, and if you had recited a mantra even once, you've already recited it infinite times. Has it resulted in God realization or purification of your antakaran? It has not. That means something has been seriously wrong. And then the wrong thing is, we have been worshipping rituals more than worshipping God. Okay. So that is something, that point has to be understood. Now let's say you do all this, and then the material rituals that you were hoping for, you don't get that. what happens then? You may even lose faith in God because you have put a condition to your devotion. There's a good chance you may even become an atheist. There are a lot of people, when something bad happens to their life, oh, there's no God. If God was there, this wouldn't have happened. So when you start putting condition to your devotion, there is a good chance you will start losing trust, faith in God, because you have already made it conditional. Okay? So that is the point. So that is where even when we worship God, looking at his guna, Aishwarya Shakti, what if God comes as a simple human being in front of you and does not show his Aishwarya? Will you stop loving him then? No, right? The true test of true love is when you have a reason not to love somebody and you still love him. That is the test of true love. We can't do that in material world. For as long as the other person is serving your purpose, or there is a delicate balance that is maintained of credit and debits, the relationship is sustained. The day that balance start tilting, you will say, enough of you, okay? I'm not a doormat, go to hell. So that is how the material love goes. But in divine set, the purpose of that, the God can behave reverse with you, and still you don't lose that because there is no condition. That love becomes unconditional at that point, and that is Tat Sukh Sukhitvam point in our scriptures, where when we start getting to that level of selflessness, that's when God starts gracing us, and that's when we start gaining eligibility for the divine love, which is his topmost prize. God will test us multiple times by behaving just the opposite to what you expect, and see how much selflessness you have developed, or how much conditional your love is. So that test can keep on happening. Okay, we have to keep that in mind. Let's move on. Now, our scriptures say, like when the sadhaks, they keep on advancing on spiritual path, your relationship with God, it will start deepening. And then the Vedic rituals, they start taking a back seat because you start understanding the deeper or the bigger picture. You find them cumbersome and time consuming. See, it's not an excuse to become lazy, but then you start looking at those rituals in perspective. When I was growing up, my mom is there in the session, right? They would freak me out, do this, do 3 times. If you don't do 3 times, something bad will happen. If you cut nails on this day, this will happen, as if Shani Dev is waiting. Okay, got you. Now I'm going to punish you. Okay, this is what I was waiting for you to make a mistake, and I'm going to take you to the cleaners. It instills fear, right? It's ritualistic. First of all, the theory behind that, and nobody knows, okay, why are you doing it? Because my mom did it. And if you ask her mom, why did you do it? My mom did it. Now my nani is not alive for me to ask her, right? That why did you start doing it? But her mom would have told her. So some of these rituals, they carry on from tradition to tradition without any a deeper understanding around it, right? People say don't do cleaning at the night, right? Maybe the purpose was that you may lose something precious around that time, and then it became a ritual around that part. So those kind of things are there. And then they really wonder that are they really obliged to do those rituals or not? And then they reject the fruitative sections of the Vedas. Fruitative sections of the Vedas are given because most of the people, they don't get to spirituality so easily. Love for God is an advanced concept. But to get them started, some kind of carrot is given to them. Dangling carrot. Here is what you will get if you do that. And so people start investing their time and building that discipline. But the hope is that they will go past that and go to the real essence of scriptures. But if we get stuck in that only, okay, I will get this, God will do this, God will do this, I will do this, then it's our loss, not anybody else. So that's where the knowledge comes in handy. Okay. We talked about Sutak also, right? Like Sutak, somebody said that if there's a Sutak going on, somebody died on a particular day, you don't celebrate that. Now, there's a good possibility somebody would have died even on Janmashtami or when Ramni happens. So are you going to stop worshipping God then? That's the point here. A devotee says, my entire life is a Sutak. Why? Because God has departed. God has departed from my heart. So then what do? Do you stop devotion? You don't stop devotion. You continue to do devotion. So that is the concept around some of these things that have to be understood properly. Now, if you look at it, a devotee says, I wish to apologize to all kind of rituals. I have no time to respect them. So dear Sandhya Vandan, not Sandhya, Sandhya Vandan, a set of rituals performs thrice daily. Holy baths, sacrifices, all that stuff. When I sit and remember the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, enemy of Kamsa, that is sufficient to release me from material bondage. Now, that doesn't mean you absolve yourself from some of the good practices around it. It's advisable to take a bath, purify yourself, and then sit for your sadhana. But let's say you are sick. then will you stop worshipping God that day in your bed? That makes sense, right? So rituals are there to help you, but they are not sacrosanct to the sense that you forget the real thing, God himself, and say, today I have a good reason not to remember God. Cannot be the cause. Yes, Shalini, you had a question. Let's move forward then. Shalini, you had a question.
Hanji, Radhe Radhe. Sorry, I actually needed a clarification just now, Nitinji, when you were speaking about Sutak and the rituals, because recently we had a demise in the family and I was told specifically not to come to the temple for 3 days or whatever. And then I was very curious. I said, isi time pe to you need, that you need the solace the most. So why would we stop from going to the mandir and stuff like that? So can you elaborate on that once more, please, Nitinji?
Sure. So
Thank
if you
you.
look at it, the Sutak is something, right? When they say that somebody has died in family, it is inauspicious. Now, taking God name, I think it can ever be inauspicious. And if that was the case, you think when Krishna avatar took place or Rama avatar took place or some of the auspicious occasions, nobody has died. That means Sutak is always going on. Somebody would have died on some day. So we lose the point. It is always auspicious to say God's name. You cannot say on these days, I will not say God's name. So devotee says, my life entire is a Sutak because God has departed. Okay. That is how devotee feels about his situation. That is the way to look at it. There's a interesting story just to illustrate this concept. Maharajji says that, there was a guy, his son died and they were taking him, to the crematorium. And along the way, they were saying Ram Naam Sat Hai. That means the only truth is Ram's name. It is said when somebody dies, now Ram Naam Sat Hai. And then it came to know, this guy had a near death, what you call that thing, but he was actually alive. And then people were saying Ram Naam Sat Hai. He said, stop, what are you saying now? You don't need to say that. Now that name is auspicious, but you go and say that to anybody in India, they say, oh, what are you saying here? Nobody has died here because it has become synonymous with the death. But what is the name? That only Ram name is the truth. That's essentially what it is saying. So the point is we get so hung up in rituals that we lose the essence. What are we talking about here? God's name can never be inauspicious. And there's absolutely no occasion where you should be fearing that I should not be taking God's name in this particular place, in this particular situation, or on this particular day or date, or whatever the case may be. Just remove that fear from your mind. That is essentially what scriptures are telling us. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hope that clarifies. Yes, Pallaviji.
Radhe Radhe Nitinji. If little bit I can add on that, chota mu badi baat, whatever little, that with Chutak is that it is the time given for the grieving family.
Yes.
Because that time is needed, and respectfully departing the soul, whatever the soul who has left, we need the time to grieve for that. The family needs to grieve. And how Shalini ji said that, the time you need to go to temple. So that time, if you have to connect to God, you don't need to be in the temple also. That is also true, right? People can connect to God wherever you are sitting. Wherever you are sitting, that becomes your temple. You don't need to be in the temple to feel the presence of God. And if if this kind of situation happens in someone's family, that 13-day period is for the grieving family and to respectfully depart the soul. And whatever the customs we have been following, I think that has to be followed, just a farewell for the departed soul. That's what I think, what I have understood.
Yeah, there is a provision for the mourning period, 3 days and then 13 days. And I'll share a video of Swamiji on this particular topic. Okay. Anything that we bring to this session is actually vetted through what Swamiji or Maharajji has said around this topic. So I'll share that video with you. But yes, you got a point here. The problem happens when you make it an annual affair, right? That is the Sutak period, God's name. Now, what can be more auspicious than thinking about God, in regardless of what situation you are in, right?
Correct.
That is the point. Yeah.
The point. Yeah.
All right. So yes, a couple of other hands I see. Let's quickly take, and then we get into the difference between Raganuga. It is a very important concept I will talk about. Yes, quickly. You can take.
Radhe Radhe Monica ji.
Radhe Monica.
Radhe Radhe. Nitinji, I had some questions on the same lines. So my father-in-law, he departed on the day of my son's birthday, which happens on September 12th, the same day. So obviously we were not celebrating his birthday, and then eventually we started celebrating his birthday on Tithi. So not on the day, like we did not follow we stopped following English calendar, and then we started celebrating his birthday on the Tithi. But could there be any sign or something that I keep wondering that if there's a sign or something that, or if this happened, is there a message or something that on my son's birthday, my father-in-law departed? So that particular day is, obviously my son doesn't understand, why are we so much happy when birthday comes?
I don't know, I mean, sign over, whether it's like any other, this is a material event, and what we're talking about is the connect of your soul. These are all bodily things, right? Son's birthday or some marriage or some other event. And whenever there is a conflict between your bodily dharma and the dharma of your soul, the dharma of the soul always takes precedence. And the only dharma of the soul, being part of God, is to worship God, love God. And that dharma is the topmost dharma. Everything else takes a back seat around it. But yeah, I mean, do signs and all, I cannot talk about that. I don't know, I mean, if there's anything around that. But whenever there's a conflict of interest between two dharmas, the dharma, which is called paradharma, takes precedence, is what scriptures tell us. And around the topic of Sutak, I'll share a video from Swamiji. That way it will shed some more light on this particular topic. But we can talk more about that. Yes, Surendraji, real quick, before we get into...
Radhe Radhe Prabhu. I think this is a concept like a window or the vast space, small thoughts of the community level. Without going to the Gita, this what we know from Bhagavad Gita is vast, but the small communities, mandir mein nahi jana, ye nahi karna, wo nahi karna, these are all.
They just become tradition, and usually it is it has a fear element to it as well, right? Sure. Because of some reason. So we're just trying to look at it in perspective here, because there cannot be anything more auspicious than remembering God or talking to God name or trying to build a connect with God, regardless of what situation you are in.
Fantastic.
Great. Thank you.
That's very good, sir. Thank you.
Now let's look at, thank you, Surendraji. So let's look at it. This is you see some regimented people. In army, you say left, right, and this and that. There are certain protocols and stuff like that. And then there is pure love. Now we are going to talk about two kinds of devotion, which is very regimented, regulated. Do's, don'ts, do this, don't do that. If you have to rotate your hand 3 times, if the chawal does not, if you throw like this will happen. If you throw like this will happen. If it falls down, this is the result you will get. If it goes into the fire, this is called regimented bhakti. Okay, and this dominates our. Oops, I don't know what happens. Okay, this dominates the bhakti that usually happens in most of the homes. Just a lot of fear and just a lot of rules around that bhakti part of it. Okay, if something goes wrong, the result that you are hoping will not happen. You're going to mess up with the result. What is it motivated by? Fear and temptation. The bhakti, 99% of the bhakti that is done in households, it's motivated either by a temptation for something or by fear. Oh, if you don't do that, what will happen? So I always used to think that Shani Dev is the most powerful god, because everybody would be scared of Shani Dev. And one of my cousins, he saw that something in Ajtak and he took me to a Shani Dev temple and tons of oil was flowing out. People were putting sikkas and watching their face in that. Anyways, so that is motivated by fear and some of it is motivated by temptation. Now let's look at some of the aspects of it. It is called Vaidhi Bhakti, rule-based Bhakti, military Bhakti, regimented Bhakti. What does it entail? And the other one is called Raganuga Bhakti, which is motivated by love for God. We'll look at some of the aspects. It is motivated fear and temptation. This one is spontaneous and than rule driven. Okay, you express yourself. Now, Rasamrit, what does it say? Some people they call Vaidhi Bhakti rules Maryada Marg, since it is bound by strong limitations of the rules mentioned in the scriptures. Raganuga Bhakti is defined as Bhakti which follows after the Ragatmika. It is inhabitants of Braj. Now, Brajlas is what we are talking about here. Yesterday, remember, I took you all the way to Braj. We'll get back to that again. Now, the other part it says, it's through Vaidhi Bhakti, one will attain the form of associate in Vaikunt. Vaikunt is your cap. Okay, you can go to Vaikunt Lok. That is where you will get capped. Raganuga Bhakti, you will get to the Braj. Brajras, you remember we spoke about Brajras yesterday? Let's do a quick recap in case. So this is Shanta Bhav. Narayan in Vaikunt, Shanta Bhav. He is my king, he is Aishwarya, and I am his subject. Distant relationship, respect only. Okay. Now let's get into, this is Brajras. And this is what we spoke about yesterday, intimacy versus Bhav, right? So if you look at it, the Raganuga Bhakti takes you to the Brajras, and Shant Bhav, that is the Vaidhi Bhakti. It will take you to Vaikunt. That is the cap. So if you look at some of the traditions, even in Sanatan Dharam, and they do Krishna Bhakti, Vaikunt is the aim. They don't talk about Braj at all. Right? Because Vaikunt, and then the other aspect of it is the saint who's a Rasik saint only can take you beyond the Shanta Bhav. Not every saint can take you there. Because the saint should have himself realized Brajras to be able to impart it to the people who follow, basically, or consider him as their guru. More aspects is those who worship in Vaidhi Bhakti, there are commandments, right? Because it's an Aishwarya Bhav, you are in awe of God. And they achieve 4 kind of liberations. I'm not going to talk about that today, Sarupya, Salokya, maybe on some other session. But it's basically your aim, you reach Vaikuntha there. And in the other Bhakti, it is more lovable to Krishna. Here you leave aside his official part, that he's Narayan, he's Vishnu, he's grand, he's so much. So Karam, Tap, Yog, Gyan, all that stuff takes a back seat. Because sweetness is very difficult to attain through fruitative activities, austerity, yoga, intellectual speculation, all that stuff. The sweetness of Sri Krishna is easily attainable for one who affectionately worships him on the path of Raga. All that is needed on this path is love for God. This is apprenticeship, and Parabhakti comes after Vaidhi Bhakti. That is the higher or the sweeter rasa of God that you are going for, because it is motivated only by love. It is quality over quantity. So if you are doing japa, right? If you're doing 16 rounds or 108 rounds, whatever, great. As long as it is accompanied with remembrance and love for God. However, if it is become a ritualistic or a mechanical exercise, it is still fine because you're still taking God's name. But, one round spent with remembrance and with the loving devotion for God is worth more than 1,000 rounds if you have not moved the needle on the love front. That is how it goes. And if you're able to shed a tear along with that, nothing like it. So that is the difference between Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. Raganuga Bhakti is purely motivated by developing love for God. Vaidhi Bhakti has a lot of rules, do's and don'ts around it. Raganuga Bhakti has only 2 rules. What are those rules? Rules are called Vidhi and Nishedh. Vidhi means do. Nishedh means do not do. Only 2 rules. Rule number 1, do anything that enables love for God or takes you closer to God. And rule number 2, don't do anything that takes you away from God. No other rule. That's it. Only 2 rules in Raganuga Bhakti. It's a simplified process. Vaidhi Bhakti, you have to really follow the rules. Okay? When you take the God name, you should have done this. When you eat the food, obviously it has to be prasad and all that stuff, but then in consciousness and you have to prepare yourself. A lot of rules are around there and people get hung up on that ritualistic aspect as well. But if you can do Vaidhi Bhakti with love for God, then it automatically becomes Raganuga Bhakti, because then the love for God starts dominating anything and everything that you do more than the ritualistic aspect of it. So that is the key difference between these two. Any questions?
Yeah, we have couple of hands raised. Radhe Radhe Ramya ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe Ramya.
Radhe Radhe, am I audible?
Yes, extremely audible, Ramya ji.
Yeah. So my question is, like sometimes, could there be something known as good fear? Like I have come across many people tell that if you don't do this, you will be stuck in the 8.4 million species. You have to do this, like whatever the ritualistic activity. So since that is not material, it is upliftment of the soul. So should we not fall for it? I mean, if I have to think from the discussion of all these days, it could be related that maybe someone is aspiring for moksha, which is also bad if they're just looking at only getting out of 8.4 billion species. But if somebody tells me that you do this, you will not be in the 8.4 million species. Then, like, if it gets ritualistic, how to manage those situations?
See, you have to understand it. With knowledge, you have to understand. It is said human psychology is driven more by fear than greed. Okay. So if you tell somebody you will get this, they'll get motivated. But if you tell somebody you stand to lose this, they'll be motivated more. So to begin with, it is fine. Even if it starts with God acknowledging. First you acknowledge God, then you become God fearing, then you become God loving. So it's a progression. But if you keep getting stuck at God fearing only, then you are capping yourself. It's not a good emotion where you are fearing God. And as coming to moksha, it's just like if somebody has fever, right? You give them a pill, crocin or a paracetamol, the fever is gone, right? Moksha is like fever is gone. Then what? After that, what? You want to do something as well, right? After you get well, that is where Bhakti Premanand talks about you want to serve God. So you just not limit yourself to dukh nivritti alone. That is a selfish desire. In Raganuga Bhakti, you have love for God, and when you love somebody, you want to do something for them. Isn't it? Happens in material world also. When you love somebody, you really want to do something. And seva is a manifestation of your love for God. So you want to do his seva, even in divine world. It's not like God, okay, moksha and I'm good. Thank you very much. Appreciate you making me, giving me moksha and thank you very much. No, you want to serve God. And you want to go to the bigger part of it, right? So you don't limit yourself to your selfish desire alone that give me dukh nivritti and thank you very much. That's all I care for. So you go much higher. So it's a good thing, at least if it helps you discipline your mind. But if you get stuck at that, then it's not a good situation because now you're capping your potential. And any devotion that is motivated only by fear is not a good spot to be in. Sure, you may start your devotional practices motivated by fear because we have limited understanding. But then you don't have to get stuck at that level. Why not move to the next level? Loving God is such a pure thing. It's a pure joy. Let's move to the next level. To start off with, if somebody is doing that, that's fine. Everybody takes it at their own pace. I hope I answered part of it at least, Shri Ramyaji. By the way, I wanted to let everybody know that whoever is from Dallas, we would like to invite you for Diwali dinner, okay, and meet you in person. So please fill it in feedback tracker. Your availability 29th, we will be having Diwali dinner. I would really love to have you over for Diwali dinner. So we do have some tickets available for that. It's going to be a nice event, keynote speech from Swamiji, some events, and then of course, a good opportunity to network and talk about, right? So please keep your schedule free for October 29th and fill it in the feedback tracker so that I can block that many number of tickets for you. Okay, it's an open invite and I look forward to meeting you all in person. All right, let's take the remaining questions now.
Radhe Radhe Samji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Nitinji, I have like a few questions, 2 or 3.
Can you make it 6, half a dozen at least? That will be fun. Okay, go at least 2 or 3. Okay, right, we'll try.
One is you said like rules are placed to take the name of God, but why are the rules placed when they are not required?
No, they are required. Okay, so people, in order to get a foot in the door, you give people incentive, right? Rules are there, but the essence of rule is even bigger. See, for example, if you don't have traffic rules, what will happen on the traffic road basically? It will be utter chaos, right? But the intent is basically to regulate. Now, when you are serving that purpose, you don't need those rules at that point. You have already serving the purpose of all the scriptures when you start loving God. All the other practices, they take a back seat. But for majority of the people, you at least get them started. You need a framework and you need to give them a carrot. And that is where 80% of our scriptures talk about karam kand. Bring some discipline to your mind. Right? Even in other traditions, they say don't eat meat on so and so days. The message there is don't eat, but they are telling to people who want to eat. So say, okay, eat, but at least don't eat on Friday or don't eat on Tuesday or don't eat on. The message is don't eat. Right? It's not saying eat. So we have to understand the deeper part of it. That is essentially what this shloka is saying. Rules are needed for you to regulate yourself and discipline your mind. But when you start the higher purpose, rules take a back seat at that point.
That means if in Raganuga Bhakti, if we are not able to apply ourselves to Raganuga Bhakti, is it better to step down to Vaidhi Bhakti?
See, there's no stepping down or not. Are your emotions or feeling for God changing? All of a sudden, have you started considering Krishna, Aishwarya Bhav, oh my God, you're going to punish me if I don't do it? So it's good to train your mind, okay, with all the practices which are there. It's always good to do those practices. However, love for God should not take a back seat, and you should not start worshipping the rituals alone.
Okay, this is connected to another question. If we have, if strong material desires are developed in us, like in the process of Raganuga Bhakti, if material desires are dominating strongly, then what should we do?
That's fine. That's fine. To begin with, see, we are not going to become selfless right from day one, right? It's a journey. As long as you are able to watch it with Sakshi Bhav and say, I understand the bigger principle about it. I need to reach this stage of Tat Sukh Sukhitvam. I'll do something about it. Okay, maybe today I'm having this many desires, but even after a year, if your desires have increased, then there's a problem. If they're slightly diminishing, then you're on the right path. So it's not that we become hard on ourselves. Oh my God, I'm still having self. It's going to happen. It's going to take time. So we take it at our pace. Okay, but let's strive for perfection as best as we can and take help from God. God will help us as well.
So we should take help from God to subside the material desires instead of
material desires. You can beat with knowledge only, right? Why don't you take drugs? That is also material desire.
Okay, for few people, they have their material desires.
Samji, I'm not able to hear you. Maybe we can
Samji,
discuss it separately.
Can you put all the questions?
Yeah, I understood. I'll just give a quick answer. See, there are material desires. They can vary for all of us, right? But with knowledge, there are so many things we reject, even in material desires, right? Not everybody takes drugs. Why? Because it's bad. So similar to that, when we start progressing on spirituality, our tendencies will still remain, right? But they start diminishing over time because you start looking at it in perspective. I have to go beyond this. And with knowledge and with God's grace, that those things will start happening because you will start losing interest in it or getting more and more selfless as you progress. It will happen. And that is where we got to be a little patient around it. May not happen immediately, but it has to happen. That is the beauty of this path. Okay, let's quickly move on to the next one. Samji, we can have an offline conversation. Looks like you had some more things to discuss.
Nitinji, there is a question in the chat. Can I take it from Chandrahasaji? So he says that according to him, there is a shloka in the devotional chapter of Bhagavad Gita where Shri Krishna or God says something like those who renounce or don't differentiate between auspicious or inauspicious things are very dear to God. So I was not sure if there is a shlok on that, but
I don't know. I'll have to check that. If you can give me a little more reference, I can check it out. Equanimity part is there, but do not differentiate between auspicious and inauspicious. I'm not sure. I'll have to check that.
Okay.
Yes, Sairamji.
Radhe Radhe, Sam. Yes, Sairamji. Please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Nitinji. I had a question. I'm not sure if somebody has already asked this, but regarding the rules and regulations, there are some folks who follow a very strict diet. I mean, no onion, no garlic, no mushroom, okay, and then no dahi also because that's fermented, and then no vinegar. And so I can understand no meat and follow a vegetarian diet and don't eat fish and eggs or any of those derivatives. I understood that part. But what is the stance on this? I'm a little bit, not sure if um, if we should completely
Sure.
restrict some of these food items.
Sure, we'll get into the diet aspect of it. In fact, there's a whole chapter devoted to it in Bhagavad Gita. But again, going back to that, right? If you're having garlic as a medicinal, not for the sake of taste, it is perfectly okay. Okay, Swamiji has answered that. Do we really need to fast on Ekadashi? He has answered that question. Maybe we are running out of time, so I'll share it on the portal or maybe on the CIC group. He's answered that question as well. What is your motive? Do you want to spice up your food and that is why you're having it? Or, you're thinking because they say, oh, it's tamasic and all. That is fine. If you're taking it as a medicine, it is okay. But if you want for the taste of your tongue, the motive behind it makes all the difference. That doesn't mean the motive behind having non-vegetarian also is going to make a difference. Non-vegetarian is anyway strictly hinsa part of it. It is in Bhagavad Gita. It falls into tamasic category anyways. But we can talk a little bit more about it. Again, it goes down to maybe I can share a couple of videos with you that will help see this in perspective. But when you start becoming too much regimented, forgetting the real purpose around it, then it starts becoming a problem. On the contrary, if you're having it just because you have to sustain yourself and you are being mindful about it, but love for God is not taking a backseat, you are doing fine. Right? Swamiji, think of it. If you were to follow all of these things, right, that typically people do, you think he can really survive? He's dependent on what people give him. In whatever consciousness, sometimes they get food from restaurant also. He doesn't have almonds or anything. So he eats pretty much whatever is served to him. Does it impact his spirituality? No, because the dominating factor is love for God, and that is such an overwhelming factor that other things take a backseat in Raganuga Bhakti. Because if you're doing love for God, right, the rituals, the other aspect of it is to a larger extent taken care of. God takes care of that part. Okay. Practically, which are not possible. He has bread also. He said, yeah, fermented food, no. But then in today's life, if somebody serves him sandwich, he will not say, oh no, what did I eat? Kind of thing. No, it goes with that, whatever is served from him. Because love for God is the dominating emotion that like that. And obviously, it doesn't mean you eat anything and everything. They are very mindful about it. But then undue importance is not attached to a lot of stuff that people get hung up on. Maybe a few videos will help shed more light. Yes, Abhishek, you had a question. I know we have a hard stop. I'm going to share a video later, but maybe last question we can take. And then at 10 o'clock, we have a hard stop because we have a next session coming up. By the way, I wanted to invite you for Diwali. Next 5 days, Swamiji is here. Sunday Satsang, if you can attend, nothing like it. And 11,111 diyas. So help us come to do the seva. And it's going to be a festive atmosphere. And like I said, Dallas people, please fill out the feedback tracker. You are welcome to join on Diwali dinner. If you put in your name, I will send you a personal note on that. Yes, Abhishek ji, please go ahead.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. So Maharaj ji says that, about Panch Kosh. So the Annamay Kosh, when it cuts, then whatever we eat doesn't affect our mind. So until that situation, should we not be aware about what we eat because it basically disturbs our mind or changes our consciousness?
It does. See, Jaisa An Vaisa Man and Jaisa Pani Vaisi Vani. So we got to be careful about it, right? But not to an extent where we make it the only thing in life. And that doesn't mean we start taking intoxicants and all that stuff. So there is a category of tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic food which is given to us. Right? But we start taking it overboard and then start getting hung up in that aspect alone and forgetting the love for God. It's just like focusing on the frills, forgetting the frock. Okay? So it's more of a frill. When you do a Raganuga Bhakti, a lot of these things take a backseat and you will automatically be guided, with your sense and kind of things that actually support your meditation. When you sit in meditation, you will not be able to if you are taking some stuff which is not convenient or congenial for your body, basically. We can discuss more on this topic. We have a hard stop. So, but Abhishek, it's a good question. Jasan, Vaisa Man. So we got to be careful about the food that we are taking. Stale food and all we need to refrain from. But when we get too hung up, too regimented, that is essentially what we are trying to talk about here, right? Ekadashi fast, eating in restaurants and those kind of things. Okay, with that, we come to the end. I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. By the way, I wanted to let you know, Diwali. So we'll not have our session on Monday, which is Tuesday morning. So next session is going to be on Wednesday morning, Tuesday evening. So have a wonderful Diwali and a great rest of your weekend. I'll send out an assignment for over the weekend, and just have a good time at Diwali and enjoy the festivities. Anything else that we wanted to announce real quick? Or
just wanted to reiterate about the Sunday satsang. This will be super special with Swamiji along with Diwali celebrations. So feel free to join it on the Zoom platform, and the link is already there in the chat. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Rahul. Yes, Sunday satsang, special satsang with Swamiji. Okay, with that, we come to our end of today's session. I look forward to seeing you next week, and happy Diwali in advance to all of you. Radhe Radhe.